Humanity once understood reality not as a hierarchy of power, but as a living system of functions. Existence itself was not framed as something to be commanded or dominated, but as something that arises, sustains, adapts, and renews. Within this understanding, what we now call femininity and masculinity were never identities, roles, or moral categories. They were ways life organizes itself. They were movements of a greater source, not opposing forces, and not competing principles. Before femininity and masculinity, there is being. Not action, not effort, not authority, but being. From being arises movement, and from movement arises expression. Femininity and masculinity are expressions of that deeper unity, not halves seeking completion. They are directions reality can move. Femininity is the condition that allows existence to occur at all. Masculinity is the movement that takes place within that condition. True femininity is foundational because it is the field in which life exists. It is not passive, weak, chaotic, or dependent. It is the capacity to hold reality, to receive without collapsing, to sustain continuity, and to regenerate without permission. It is the principle that allows something to be real in the first place. A body heals when nothing is done. A forest regrows without instruction. Life continues even after harm. This is not fragility, it is resilience. Femininity does not need to be directed in order to exist. It already exists. It already functions. It already knows how to continue. Masculinity arises within that field. It does not precede it. Masculinity is movement, direction, focus, decision, boundary, and execution. It answers the question of what to do within what already exists. When healthy, masculinity brings precision rather than force. It shapes without suffocating. It protects rather than exploits. It commits rather than dominates. Masculinity is at its best when it understands itself as directional rather than foundational, when it knows it is moving within life rather than attempting to replace it. This is why true femininity does not need masculinity to exist, but welcomes it to create. Femininity is self-sustaining. Masculinity is creative. Masculinity needs a field in order to act meaningfully. Femininity does not require action to remain real. When this relationship is intact, masculinity is calm and purposeful rather than aggressive or insecure. It knows it is invited, not required. Femininity, in turn, remains sovereign, not dependent. This is partnership, not hierarchy. The great distortion occurred when this relationship was severed. Over time, as societies centralized authority and prioritized control, reality itself was reframed. Observational systems that learned from nature were replaced with prescriptive systems that dictated behavior. Cyclical understanding was replaced with linear thinking. Relationship was replaced with hierarchy. Balance was replaced with domination. Femininity, being regenerative, self-organizing, and internally authoritative, became threatening to systems that depended on compliance. Masculinity, stripped of its grounding field, became anxious and compensatory. Patriarchy is not simply men ruling over women. It is a defensive structure formed when masculinity lost contact with its origin and attempted to survive as if self-originating. It is masculinity trying to become the source rather than a function. Direction without containment becomes force. Action without feedback becomes violence. Identity without grounding becomes brittle. Patriarchy is not confidence, it is compensation. This insecurity rewrote myth, history, and scripture. Stories that once honored primordial feminine creation were altered to remove or subordinate it. Goddesses became consorts, temptresses, or monsters. Creation was reframed as command rather than emergence. Authority flowed downward rather than circulating. Obedience replaced attunement. This was not only about controlling women, it was about erasing memory of origin, because remembering origin requires humility. And humility dissolves false authority. It also just so happens that in our physical world, the foundational aspect of the universe, what is sometimes known as Source, or by others God, is represented by women and femininity. For those operating in severance, this truth can be maddening and create quite a lot of resistance, especially since we are dealing with thousands of years of psychological programming from rewriting our origin story. The meaning of the yin-yang itself was flattened by this distortion. Originally, it described dynamic states of energy, not gendered traits or moral opposites. Yin and yang were understood as mutually arising movements within a whole, each containing the seed of the other. Yin was not weakness. Yang was not virtue. The teaching explicitly warned that excess yang collapses itself. Yet later, interpretations reduced this wisdom into caricature, equating femininity with passivity and masculinity with dominance, normalizing imbalance rather than cautioning against it. The philosophy warned of burnout, collapse, and devastation. Civilization ignored the warning and built itself on perpetual overreach. The consequences were profound. Societies organized around domination and extraction produced violence not because humans are inherently cruel, but because systems rewarded force over coherence and growth over sustainability. Disconnection with source created parasitism and the idealization of parasitic behaviors as noble. Ecological devastation mirrored nervous system collapse. Burnout became normalized, meaning eroded. Society extracted and dominated, crushing the psyche and health of its people. At the psychological level, identity itself fractured. People were trained to distrust their internal stabilizing intelligence and outsource authority upward, while being forced into rigid roles disconnected from their natural functioning. Men were taught to suppress vulnerability and equate worth with dominance or productivity. Women were taught to suppress sovereignty and equate worth with compliance or submit. Everyone paid the price. What we are seeing today due to this severance is something completely unnatural and non-sustainable, causing depression in the individual, and collapses in societies that are not self-sustaining because they are not foundational and not built from connection to what is sustainable. Much of what we now call mental illness, anxiety, alienation, and chronic dissatisfaction is not an inevitable feature of human existence. It is the downstream effect of living inside a distorted operating system that mistook control for order and severed action from its grounding field. Masculinity, forced into dominance, became exhausted and violent. Femininity, suppressed and redefined, became fragmented and internalized. The entire system lost coherence. Restoration does not mean reversing dominance or replacing patriarchy with matriarchy. It does not mean feminizing masculinity or elevating femininity into rule from the standpoint of modern masculine ideas of what ruling means. It means remembering function. Femininity as foundation, masculinity as direction, both as expressions of a greater source rather than identities to defend. When masculinity remembers it is directional rather than foundational, it relaxes. When femininity is allowed to be sovereign rather than subordinate, it stabilizes. When both return to function rather than performance, the complex dissolves. And this brings us to the next understanding. Patriarchy, at its core, is a complex source, does not feel threatened by any of its aspects. It is integrated. However, in the physical world, the male, who is an expression of the directional function of source, began to look around and question reality. His incarnation made him forget, and he began to ask the following questions. Why am I not foundational? And why am I not the source? Why do I come from source and not the other way around? And then he asked, why do I have to function in ways the feminine does not? Why can I not imitate her? These are questions asked by someone who has forgotten that he is part of a greater whole. He has become lost by the illusion of incarnation. From the point of view of individuals corrupted by a need for power and hierarchy. Acknowledging the Divine Mother as the aspect of all that is foundational feels like being subjugated. But this is simply due to the fact that this is how the distorted version of masculinity has been looking at the world through the eyes of separation. The next truth is this. The feminine aspect and masculine aspect both agreed to allow the masculine the freedom of disconnection. The severed male wanted to know how life looks when everyone is disconnected. He did not, of course, realize what this meant at the time, but what we are experiencing now is a lesson that has been offered to the masculine so that he can understand what happens to people and to the world when he behaves as if he is foundational and severs himself from source. And that is why now more and more people are waking up. The lesson is ending, and the feminine has fulfilled her role. The masculine is now seeing the full cost, globally, of his disconnection and attempt at control. The global masculine question of why do I have to function in ways the feminine does not? Why can I not imitate her? Has been fully answered. Another truth on the subject is that femininity and masculinity are not evenly distributed traits and were never meant to be. Different people, cultures, eras, and even phases of one life express different ratios. Problems arise when balance is enforced externally rather than allowed to self-organize internally. When societies demand sameness or rigid polarity, they interrupt the intelligence of variation. True balance is not symmetry, it is appropriateness. A time of crisis may require more masculine decisiveness. A time of healing may require more feminine holding. Pathology begins when one mode is idealized as morally superior rather than contextually necessary. Another overlooked truth is that the feminine carries grief for the world, and the masculine carries responsibility for action, and both have been denied healthy expression. When femininity is suppressed, grief has nowhere to go and turns into depression, numbness, or chronic exhaustion. When masculinity is distorted, responsibility turns into control or avoidance. Much modern suffering comes from emotions and agency being split apart. Healing often requires letting the feminine feel fully without being rushed to solutions, and letting the masculine act cleanly without being driven by panic or dominance. There is also an important truth about time. Femininity is oriented toward continuity across time, ancestry, future generations, cycles, seasons. Masculinity is oriented toward immediacy, this moment, this choice, this direction. Patriarchal systems collapsed time into urgency, demanding constant output and growth, which burned out both principles. Reclaiming the feminine often feels like reclaiming slowness, patience, and long vision. Reclaiming the masculine often feels like reclaiming decisive presence without frenzy. Together, they restore a sane relationship to time itself. Another subtle point is that true masculinity does not seek validation, and true femininity does not seek permission. When either does, it is already distorted. Masculinity that needs applause becomes performative or violent. Femininity that needs approval becomes self-erasing or manipulative. This is why healing these principles is less about learning new behaviors and more about removing the conditions that created insecurity in the first place. Neither femininity nor masculinity is meant to carry the burden of identity alone. They are functions of a larger being, not the totality of who someone is. When people reduce themselves to one principle, they become brittle. When they allow both to operate fluidly, something deeper emerges. A sense of wholeness that doesn't need justification. That wholeness is what many people are actually seeking when they argue about gender, power, or polarity. The deepest truth is that femininity is existence. Masculinity is the decision to act within it. One is the ground. One is the path. When both are honored, life moves forward without breaking itself. It is not about control or domination. It is about co-creation, harmony, and relationship.